Welcome to Incredible Idaho. I'm Jack Hemingway. Tonight we begin our show with a tour of the rugged, spectacular country that's home to Idaho's wild sheep. It's been called the River of No Return, a romanticized but exceedingly appropriate name for Idaho's majestic Salmon River. Surrounded by sheer, unyielding canyon walls, the water has carved a tortuous path through the ranges of the northern Rocky Mountains, leaving behind a landscape wondrous in its purity and unbending magnificence. Here in this imposing primitive country, we're indisputably reminded that man is still subject to the whims and nuances of a powerful force called nature. She has sculpted a place of protection. Harsh, angular cliffs rise abruptly from the edges of the riverbank, forming a natural refuge for the Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep.
They like open country without a lot of timber on it. They like fairly dry country. They can't handle deep snow. And steep slopes like this shed snow pretty easily. You don't get a real steep, deep snow built up on them.
Early winter is the breeding season for bighorn sheep. The females tend to band together in groups, some with this year's offspring by their side. Although the young lambs have been weaned, they still cling to the protection of their mothers. But the rams are on the move, traveling from band to band, up to 25 miles in a couple of days, looking for receptive ewes. Unlike bull elk, bighorn rams do not form and protect a harem. Rather, they choose an individual ewe in a group and begin herding her, guarding her from the attentions of other would-be suitors.
What's happening with this group of sheep here is we've got one mature ram and a couple of young rams that he's able to keep on the periphery just by threatening him a little bit. If you watch him, he'll stretch his neck out and turn his head from side to side and show him his horns and make a little bit of a mock chase, but really it doesn't take any significant effort to keep the other rams away from her.
The younger rams are probably 2 to 3 years old. They have yet to develop the massive full curl horns of an older male. A closer look reveals a series of rings circling the horn. Each winter, horn growth temporarily halts and a ring is formed much like those on a tree, making it possible to estimate the age of the animal. This dignified fellow carries horns that have acquired the mass and length of a ram approximately 5 or 6 years old.
Oh sure, they're heavy. Mature ram head is probably 40, 45 pounds. It's a lot of weight to carry around. Tremendous neck muscles on them. Yeah. Like I say, they're built to take the shock of running into things. If we had a couple of rams here that were of, say, comparable size, then you'd start to see some head banging and some real serious physical clashes.
Often the end of a mature ram's horns are ragged and broken. This is called brooming. Although it seems this could possibly be caused by clashing with other males, it's much more likely it's a natural result of negotiating the rough, rocky country that bighorns inhabit.
I think it's probably just from beating them on rocks and trees and things like that, but they'll broom the ends off on almost all of them. So they'll take off, 6, 8 inches worth of horn usually.
The horns of the female sheep grow each year too, but average only about 7 to 9 inches. If she breeds this year, her lamb will be born sometime in late April or early May.
Generally, when you look at a sheep herd, if you had, say, 50 lambs for every 100 ewes, that's doing pretty well. Now, some of those ewes will be young ones, and they wouldn't be producing a lamb anyway, but probably a good, healthy sheep population, 3 years out of 4, a ewe would produce a lamb.
This population of bighorn sheep has not always been the healthy herd you see here today. During the winter of '88-'89, biologists discovered that a lung disease was plaguing the animals, causing them to cough and show other signs of pneumonia.
We don't know the whole story yet. We had initial disease problem, and we lost a lot of adults in this population, maybe 40% of the adults and almost all the lambs. Since then, we haven't had adult losses, but we've had a lot of lamb losses year after year. Last year, it looked like things were improving a little bit, and it appears that they're getting better again this year. But we had a wet spring, tremendous forage growth. It's been a great year. And so the sheep we're seeing on the mountain now look great. They're fat, they're sleek, they look real good.
Although mountain lions have been known to prey on the lambs and ewes, few predators will challenge an adult ram. He need only fear disease, hunters, perhaps a bad fall in a rock slide, or poor habitat conditions. As is the case with many wild animals, the quality of the summer forage is a critical key to winter survival.
Probably the absolute maximum for a ram would be 15 years. We see very few rams that get to 12 or 13 years. Even 10 years is getting old for a ram. Of course, they're out there now running around on the hillside, burning off all the body fat, that they put on all summer long. And winter's coming. So chances are they're not going to do nearly as well as the ewes are.
The rams are on the run, trying to provoke a response from a receptive ewe.
What very often will happen is the ram will go up and just give her a leg strike with one of his front legs and stimulate a chase, and they'll chase each other all over the hillside until one of them gets tired. Sometimes the ewe will stimulate the chase herself. She'll initiate it, chase them around.
The ewe also has the option of rejection. She may rebuff a younger ram in favor of a mature male, or perhaps she's just not ready to be bred. And so the pageantry plays on against the spectacular backdrop carved by the River of No Return. For centuries, secluded and spectral, the steep canyon walls have been silent witnesses, echoing with the crash of 1,000 generations of rams fighting for the right to be a part of the next generation. Animals are often orphaned in the wild, usually resulting in the death of the young offspring. But our next story is about an exception to nature's rule. Last spring, 2 sets of orphaned black bears were turned into Fish and Game. Now this winter, the time has come to return these young animals into the wild, where they belong. For these little bear cubs, wildlife rehabilitator Sally Mom has become a sort of surrogate parent. She's been their provider and protector since the sibling pairs were found.
We're gonna take the cage inside and see if we can get the 2 friendlier ones to load.
The 2 friendlier ones are Grizz and Cheyenne, brother and sister. They were found, cruelly abandoned by someone in a garbage dumpster. What happened to their mother can only be left to grim speculation, but it was obvious they were too young to be weaned. So the little cubs were bottle-fed by Sally. As a result, they are a bit more comfortable with humans than the other pair of siblings who hang back shyly in the rear of the pen, anxiously watching the proceedings.
Can you lure him back, call him from there? There he goes, there he goes.
After a lot of coaxing and a bit of firm-handed encouragement,
Yeah,
the 2 cubs are finally caged and carried to the truck for their journey back home.
There we go. Okay, that'll hold him in.
The other set of siblings, Shoshone and Shenandoah, were a few weeks older when they were brought in. Since it wasn't necessary to nurse them, these cubs have retained more of their wild nature. The 2 bears are a hefty load. The big male, at about 80 pounds, outweighs his sister. But both cubs are almost 50 pounds heavier than they would be if they had been raised in the wild under normal conditions.
They want to come real bad.
Come on, Shoshone, it's okay.
It's been a busy summer and fall for this surrogate parent, and now the time has come to cut the apron strings. But even as the bears are about to be rehabilitated to the wild, the knowledge that these cubs were probably orphaned due to poaching still rankles with Sally.
I feel badly, but that's life, I think, so at least I'm here to help them.
While they waited for the mountains to be blanketed with snow, Fish and Game biologists scouted for abandoned dens in which to place the cubs. In anticipation of the move, the bears have been denied food. This helps to slow their metabolism, preparing them for their first winter's hibernation.
You know, they're really shy animals, and when you put them in a strange situation like this, they get frightened. That's as simple as that.
The snow helps assure the cubs stay in the den because any forage foods are buried beneath a layer of white. Wildlife biologist John Beecham prepares a drug that will immobilize and tranquilize the bears, hopefully rendering the whole experience a little less traumatic for the young animals.
This dosage for this size bear ought to put them down for an hour and a half to 2 hours, which will give us plenty of time to ear tag them, get them down to the den, get them situated, and then
Okay, got the black.
and then leave. So by the time they start waking up,
12:23.
we should be long gone. Okay, got the little brown one.
In a few minutes, both bear cubs are out. John pulls the male from the cage and begins the process of ear tagging and measuring the bear. If in the future one of these cubs were to be captured in a research operation or harvested by a hunter, the ear tags will tell biologists how far the bear wandered from its den. It will also help scientists measure the success of the orphan cub rehabilitation program.
In fact, last summer we caught one that we'd released last year, a little female. In fact, we caught her probably less than a half a mile from the den we put her in.
Goodbye, Shenandoah.
Volunteers help carry the drowsy bears down the mountain to an abandoned den site. The first two siblings will be placed together in a small cave that biologist Jeff Rollman checked out a few days earlier.
Almost there.
If the cubs had not been orphaned, this first winter would be spent hibernating together with their mother in a similar den site that she had chosen.
That one in here.
An adult female has claimed the den as her own. John tries to see if she's marked with ear tags.
Now, take it easy.
Perhaps she's a bear that was placed in the same den some years ago as an orphan cub herself.
I don't see any ear tags. She got her head out that time.
The bear is clearly not going to cooperate with John.
Yeah.
Her identity will remain a secret. But as for this year's orphan cubs, a new den site needs to be located, and fairly quickly, before the biologists begin to lose daylight. After a short trip down the road, the two sleeping cubs are once again unloaded from the truck and dragged through the snow. Fortunately, the second den site remains empty. The little female is the first to go in. It's not a very glamorous job, and not one for a person with the least bit of claustrophobia. As a matter of fact, during the process, John gets stuck and has to be hauled up by the feet.
Okay, one down. I got too much dirt in my eyes.
The male is next, following his sister into the den. When John feels the bears are comfortably situated, he's once again unceremoniously hauled from the cave. The biologists leave the entrance blocked with pine boughs so that when the bears wake up, they'll feel secure. If all goes well, the young cubs will sleep away the winter months, sheltered in their cozy den beneath the snow. Winter is traditionally the easiest time of year to view wildlife in Idaho.
Can you wave to them? Yeah, but let's stay behind the car now. So they don't see us. We don't want to scare them.
Deer, elk, and antelope have migrated down from the high country to the more forgiving territory of lower elevations. Often a leisurely drive from town will provide ample opportunity to watch and photograph wildlife. But what about the predator species? These are the animals that are seldom seen. But with a lot of luck, a lot of work, a lot of persistence, winter can be the very best time to get a close look at maybe even a bobcat or a coyote or a fox.
That's a distress cry, and it imitates a rabbit that's wounded. Maybe a hawk has come in and injured it, and it's trying to get away, and it might be in a hole, and the hawk is right there after it. its squealing and distress call.
Predator calling. It's not leisurely, and it's more than just a drive. For no doubt you will have to get out and do some hiking, but if you're willing to work at it, you'll be rewarded. The idea is to convince the predator that you are wounded prey. We all know that winter is the toughest time for wildlife, but a grazing animal like a deer or elk does not have the added complexity of searching for food that can run away. Unless predators are fortunate enough to find a winter-killed animal or one that is severely wounded, deep snow and cold weather can make survival difficult. Biologists Gary Power and Mike Leiter are playing on the theory that a fox or coyote will find the promise of a relatively easy meal, in this case a wounded rabbit, too inviting to resist.
When you're getting into position, you never expose yourself, walk right out onto the ridge. If you're going to a ridge, you know where you want to go and sneak into it. And a lot of times I'll set for 10 or 15 minutes and not make a sound or move even before I start calling.
Camouflage is extremely important. And if you're trying to get photographs or video with your home camera, remember to also disguise your camera and tripod. And then try to remain completely motionless.
A lot of times we'll start out high-pitched, pretty frantic, and then it's almost as if the animal has gotten away and it's still injured and it's hurting, and the tone gets quieter. I prefer not to have it constant, but some folks do like to have a constant rhythm to it. I usually like to break it and then quiet it down. I prefer the hand-operated calls because I have more control over it.
There are a number of calls on the market, a variety of hand-operated ones like Gary's, or a battery-operated call that runs on a pre-recorded audio tape. Your choice may be dictated by the kind of predator that you're attempting to bring in.
One of the advantages to the electronic is it comes with like a 30-foot cord, so you can isolate yourself from the source of the sound. And another good thing about it is there's less hand movement. You're not doing this all the time. You can pay more attention to what's coming in around you.
Gary says the best time of day to call is early morning or evening, because that's when a predator is naturally hunting or in the stillness just prior to a storm when both predators and game animals are on the move. The quiet allows the call to carry, and there's no wind to relay your scent, because a wary coyote or a fox will almost always circle downwind, using its keen sense of smell to check you out. Gary also suggests that if you're out calling by yourself, to choose a location with a backstop, a tree or a rock, because a predator may approach from behind.
Just from the standpoint that you're dealing with a wild animal that's hungry, that's after food. And all of a sudden, if you're in a hole and an animal gets in with you, he's going to be startled, and he's not going to be after you, but he may bite or scratch on the way out. I just like being out. It's a gorgeous day today, even though we didn't get anything. It's just wonderful being out. It's also interesting watching a coyote who thinks that he's coming in to get a rabbit, and you step out of the brush and say hi.
Biologist Steve Knick had just had that experience while predator calling in the Owyhee Desert. Completely fooled, this hungry coyote bounds right up to Steve's video camera. Even though the coyote retreats at once, he still seems unsure. He stops a little ways out and turns and stares. Finally, convinced that something is awry, he trots off across the desert. Predator calling can be an excellent opportunity to get unusual shots like this series of bobcat photos taken by Steve while calling in eastern Idaho's Big Desert. But regardless of your motives, it's an incredible experience to feel the surprise and the flush of adrenaline that occurs when a hungry predator rushes in, convinced that you are about to be its next meal. Tonight, we close our show with the glorious splendor of winter sunrises and sunsets.